Hello, everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. My name is Laura Gommans, and I'm here with Lab 111's head of cinema, Tom Ooms.
Hello.
The movie Amadeus isn't really about Mozart. It's about the rest of us, the ones who can recognize greatness but never seem to quite reach it ourselves. Lab 111's own Odyssey Classics is bringing Amadeus back to a screen near you, so it's time to revisit the Miloš Forman classic. Before we start, as always, we'd love it if you'd leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as it really helps us. Also, send us your most controversial film hot take or confession. We read one out at the end of every episode. And there's a lot of fun stuff happening at Lab 111 in Amsterdam. We're launching our new program, Can't Get You Out of My Head, Films of Obsession, which we'll dive into in our next episode. We also have a lecture on the 12th of May, My Film is Vietnam, How Apocalypse Now Shaped Our Understanding of War, by Rutger van der Hoeven. Find the link to tickets in the show notes. Tom, what have you been watching lately? What have you been up to? How's life?
Oh my God, what have I been watching? I recently saw the new Michael Jackson biopic.
Right. I haven't seen it yet.
It does a lot of stuff right, and then it does everything that's cliche about biopics, which nicely relates to this podcast episode about Amadeus, which in itself is a musical biopic, but does everything completely different than... Yeah, this movie really is Michael Jackson, the Dewey Cox story.
That's hilarious.
So it does all the stuff all the cliches.
Well, we already know his dad was...
But that's the... Yeah. Okay, so it actually posed a question where I was like... So I'm watching it and thinking like... Wait, there's a moment where there is a card going over a board to pick the name for his next album. And you see like Human Nature and all these track titles on this board, and you constantly in the background hear.
Oh, what's it gonna be?
What's it gonna be? And then it zooms in, and you see a hand, but you don't quite see the title, and it puts it on the board, and it just says Thriller, and then it cuts to the opening shot or the shot where you see him as a zombie in the street.
It's that Leonardo DiCaprio meme of like, I know that's what it is.
Yeah, you go like that. The weird thing is that entire sequence is hella cliche. But then when it cuts to the shot from the Thriller video, it's perfectly lit. The makeup is on fleek. It looks exactly like a 4K restoration of the Thriller video clip. So there's this weird thing going on where you're going
how do you feel about it? Yeah,
I have no idea really, because it's his nephew, right, playing Michael.
Yeah.
When I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna do the voice.
Yeah,
then the first,
don't be ignorant. And one thing I did also think about the trailer is the prosthetic nose is offensive. It's like that's. I know Michael Jackson used to have a big nose, but that nose does not fit his face. Spoken as someone with like maybe the biggest nose in a 10-mile radius.
A nose aficionado. I would say that the dance moves, the way he speaks, everything he does it's hard to not just go like, well, it kind of really does resemble Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
But yeah, then again, it does do all the sort of hyper cliches. But then again, his life was... If you would go pose yourself the question, so whose life is the most pop star cliche possible? It's him, right?
Yeah.
Dad beats him. He tries to get out of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird film. I didn't think it was great. I did come out of it really appreciating his music again.
Okay.
And thinking I am happy that it does justice to a black artist. I will say, this was now maybe a bit of a spoiler. It's a first part of 2 movies.
Right. I only found that out like last week.
Right. Yeah. And middle of the screening, I was going like, wait, there's a lot to cover. What are we doing here? It ends in 1986. Because then I was born.
They're like, the second part has to include Tom Ooms, and we gotta wait for him to sign the contract.
It's the start of the Bad Tour, and then we're gonna get the rest. Question, of course, is because there's quite a legal battle going on with some of the people who accused him of sexually assaulting them. Because there is, of course, this iffy vibe around Michael Jackson that never really got resolved in any way.
No.
He was never convicted for anything. Were there out-of-court settlements? I don't know, really?
Yeah, there were.
There were? Yeah?
Yeah, but it was arranged by, I've been a bit into it, but it was arranged by the estate and the Jackson family, especially the children of the Jackson family, have a big legal battle of their own with the Jackson estate of who's managing it and how they're managing
so
it.
it's one
complicado.
big shitstorm. So it seems that they are handling that in the second movie.
Yeah.
I'm unsure, but
because the second movie seems like a very different. That would be a very different movie because that's where he like has all the surgeries and the things, and he dangles blanket out the window.
No, he has part of the surgery in this one.
Okay,
because the surgery is pretty early in his life.
Yeah, but like the skin bleaching and another nose job and another nose job and another nose job, and you know the whole like he's gone a bit.
No, and he closes himself off, and he builds Neverland, and blah blah blah, and he
that
holds a blanket out of the
Neverland
window.
montage.
There are so many montages in
that.
Anyway, sorry. What have you been watching?
Speaking of which, a lot of montages. I watched the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and then I absolutely hated it. And then I said that on the internet. Well, what I said on the internet was, hey guys, I think maybe we can expect a bit more from media for children. Like, you know, there's some really, really good kids movies. When we were kids movies were generally quite good, you know, and even enjoyable to watch for adults. And I never says like, hey, if you like this movie, you are dumb. But people came for me so hard. And what I thought was funny is that you could tell in the comments where people were like, shut up, it's a nice movie. And it was always like full of spelling mistakes and stuff. And it's like, I don't want to directly correlate IQ to people thinking this is enough.
But now she will.
Of a movie, but now on the podcast where I'm safe, I will. No, what I think this movie does, which is such a shame, is Mario is an IP that we both grew up with, but also kids now grew up with. So it's a thing that can span generations of people who love Mario, right? Mario in itself doesn't have a very interesting story. It's a plumber trying to save a princess and a big turtle. Like someone took LSD and wrote that. But I think that what this movie does is just basically going, remember this character, you like this character. Anyway, moving on. This character's a thing that you know from the game. And it just throws...
Member berries, like South Park said.
Member berries. Yeah. It just throws things at you without ever giving a shit about having a story, about its existing characters that we should be invested in for some fucking reason. Because, you know, they chose Chris Pratt to voice Mario, which I think is still ridiculous. So I think this movie is just the bare minimum. It's like the colors are bright. There's 7,000 montages of them running fast and jumping on rainbows. And that's it. That's all it is. And I think it's a damn shame because if you look at things like the Lego movie, you know, that's also a thing that's like an IP that they just bothered to write a good script. And it's going to make $1 billion. So why don't you hire some people who can write a screenplay that doesn't suck?
Yeah, so I haven't seen it, and I won't because I saw part of the first one and I turned it off after 15 minutes because I just didn't give a shit. And also, like Mario, for me, in my nostalgia, has a perfect place there, being just a video game. Yeah. I don't need to have him voiced by Chris Pratt. Or a live action played by Bob Hoskins in a terrible movie from the 80s.
I almost prefer that one.
But that movie is bonkers.
That was wild.
Because at some point they just went like, "Hey,
Dennis Hopper, who's in that again?"
Yeah, Dennis Hopper as bad guy and John Leguizamo as Luigi. It sucks.
Maybe if you want more for your children. My mom actually, so I actually do have a story about this. When I was really, really little, I think Amadeus must have been on TV, and my mom was like, oh man, I love Mozart stuff. So she put me in front of the TV while she was watching Amadeus. And of course, it starts with that really kind of horrific scene where Salieri's like, slit his throat and it's like all this blood and stuff. And that traumatized me so bad as a kid. And I don't think my mom was ready for that to happen. And I also don't think I was ready for that to happen. So I do actually have a childhood Amadeus story. But today we're going to be talking about Amadeus. For those who need a refresher, it's of course a 1984 masterpiece by Miloš Forman. We see F. Murray Abraham as Salieri and Tom Hulce as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Salieri's at the end of his life and tells a priest about his life as Mozart's biggest hater. Because Salieri wanted nothing more than to be a great composer, a mouthpiece for God, and instead God chose Mozart. It won 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and here's a clip.
astounding. It was beyond belief. These were first and only drafts of music. But they showed no corrections of any kind. Not one. He had simply written down music already finished in his head. Page after page of it, as if he were just taking dictation.
So, Tom, we're re-releasing Amadeus. What is it about this movie that made you want to re-release it now?
There are two parts to the story. The first part is I always really loved Amadeus as a film. I think it's narratively one of the best put together celebrations of music and musical genius evs.
Creativity,
yeah. And it's fandom, the movie, in a weird way. Yeah. It's like,
sure.
It's what it means to be like infatuated with somebody and realizing you can never do that.
Yeah.
What happened when a while back when we were in talks about re-releasing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, also a Miloš Forman masterpiece, the nephew of the original producer said to us, well, if you're releasing this, don't you also want to re-release Amadeus? And it had been restored by the Academy Motion Picture and Arts. Thank you, Elias. There's new 4K restoration, looked beautiful. We decided to re-release it, and it's now screening in, I think, almost 80 theaters in the Benelux, and yeah, I'm really happy with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This movie was based on a play, so it's a Peter Shaffer play. Do you know who originally starred in that?
Yeah.
Ian McKellen.
Luke Skywalker.
Well, also, but first it was Ian McKellen and Tim Curry. So Ian McKellen as Salieri and Tim Curry as Mozart. Later, it was Mark Hamill on Broadway. It's like, damn, I actually would have loved to see Ian McKellen and Tim Curry in
Tim Curry
these
as
roles.
Mozart. That's bizarre. But also Luke Skywalker as Mozart is just bizarre.
I love how you keep referring to him as just Luke Skywalker.
Because that's the reason that Forman didn't cast him.
Oh, really?
Hamill was performing Mozart or Peter Shaffer's Amadeus, and he was Mozart. And this was just after Star Wars. Or even maybe during Jedi?
84, yeah, so like sometime before 84. Could be, yeah.
I'm unsure. He was specifically doing that on Broadway to get away from the whole Luke Skywalker thing. Like, I can't be Luke Skywalker for my entire life.
Right.
But then
How
when...
did that work out?
Exactly. Well, that didn't really... For some people, he's the voice of the Joker. Come on. So he wanted to audition, and Forman just rejected him. He was like, no. And there's an interview where he like imitates Forman, saying like, "Not going to be Luke Skywalker in my movie as Amadeus, no."
Great Forman, by the way.
And
Sick Miloš.
and Hamill really respected his. He kind of understood what he meant, but
Right.
would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah, because now that he chose Tom Hulse, who I can't what happened to him?
Nobody knows. Really.
Nobody knows.
No. But it's the same thing with F. Murray Abraham.
White Lotus.
Exactly. But
Woo!
let's be real about this. Like F. Murray Abraham was during the production, sort of the pre-production of Amadeus. He was playing Omar in Scarface. Forman specifically waited until he shot all his scenes because actually Murray Abraham auditioned for a completely different part, and then Forman really liked him reading part of the first Salieri monologue where he's like, "You know this tune? No, I don't. It's by you don't."
Devastating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. We'll get to it at the beginning of the movie. So he waited until he shot all his scenes for Scarface, and then asked him again, "Can you read for Salieri?" And he gave him the role specifically thinking like, if he has all the time in the world to do this and not be doing multiple things, he can really focus on this role. And man, he
did.
Out of the ballpark and then F. Murray Abraham never really returned to screen.
Yeah, you see him pop up here and there, but not. I feel like he's making a bit of a comeback now after, because I've seen him in some things recently. But then Tom Hulse, he was the voice of Quasimodo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't really know what other things of note that he's done.
Wait, that's really weird. So Mark Hamill became the voice of the Joker in the Batman series and movies, and this guy also peaked on a point and just went on to do voice acting.
Yeah. So no, nothing really. Before this, he'd done Animal House, but then after that, yeah, I know. But after that, Hulse, no, just probably vibing out. 72 years old, probably vibing out. Good for him. Great singer. And then Miloš Forman at the time, of course, had just done One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but I think Miloš Forman's filmography is very interesting because he's one of those directors that you can't really go, that's a Miloš Forman movie. I feel like he's done so many different things. So he's done Man on the Moon, Hair, The People versus Larry Flynn, like all of these movies, but he never truly became like an auteur who found his voice. Or would you disagree?
I think he became one of those guys that was very good at not being American, but making very American movies. But I kind of agree. Yeah, he kind of has a sort of journeyman directorial quality to him.
Well, that just happens quite often when I go, I guess Miloš Forman did this, instead of like, that wouldn't happen for like a Scorsese or something.
Yeah, it's like the Peter Weir, Sidney Lumet kind. Well, let's put Sidney Lumet in his own
bracket,
little corner, own little bracket. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah,
like what did Stephen Frears make? That kind of thing. Like you go like, I kind of know that name, but the hours, like stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a very impressive filmography.
He's a master in reframing these things in a very interesting way, because we just talked about Michael Jackson biopic. It's very tempting if you're doing a Mozart movie to make it a biopic, but the way that he frames it, where it's fully from Salieri's perspective, makes it such an interesting movie, because Salieri is an unreliable narrator. And how much of this is true? Like, how annoying was Mozart really? Yeah. Because this is a fun thing that I see people on the internet say a lot, that it kind of mirrors the Squidward SpongeBob thing.
Yeah, you need to explain this to me. I knew you were going to bring this up. I have never watched any SpongeBob.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I don't really
I'm
care.
old, kids.
Well, you're 2 years older than I am.
I'm old, kids.
So it has this thing, and the audience, most of the audience will know what I'm talking about. Like, Salieri's this really like stern. He kind of deprives himself of joy because he wants to work hard and he wants to do this thing. Meanwhile, SpongeBob, his neighbor and colleague, kind of like bounces around life going, nah, and he's like really good at making the burgers. And you see Squidward like really develop this hatred for SpongeBob because of the joy that he has. And it's like basically the same story here. Salieri wants nothing more than to be this mouthpiece of God, to like create what God wants him to create.
For the audience members that have no fucking idea what this movie is about, we need to explain who the hell Salami is. As Roger Ebert in 1984 almost said in his review.
Right, go
Antonio
ahead.
Salami. Antonio Salieri is a court composer in Vienna. When he was a child, he was already infatuated with the music and the genius of this younger kid called Mozart, who at the age of 4 had written his first concerto, like F. Murray Abrahams says. And he is a child from poor background who worked after his father died, who hated music. He really went for his passion, but he prayed to God saying, I will never have sex specifically for you so that you will give me the gift of music and people will know my music. And all the way in the beginning of the movie, it's already proved that nobody really knows his music.
Nobody really remembers. Yeah.
So he plays a little ditty for the. This is the narrative device of the movie. A priest comes up to him and asks him to confess his sins. He plays a little ditty. The priest doesn't know it, and then he plays something else, and he immediately recognizes
it. Of course.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. Did you compose that? And he says, No,
that was this other guy. Let me tell you about this other guy.
Yeah, let me tell you about this other guy. I love it because he says, "No, that's Mozart," and then the priest says, "The man you say you killed." The movie just starts like a sort of murder mystery. Like, who the hell is this Salami guy? Did he kill Mozart? And then it goes back into time, and when Salieri is a child, and he comes up and he works his way up into the court, and then eventually he meets Mozart. And Mozart is this, immediately the first moment he meets Mozart, he is this sort of, he's chasing a girl,
Running
running
around.
around, like being a dick, like laughing, like
You do a really good
child.
Yeah. Can we, okay, we'll do a clip.
Will you marry me, yes or no?
But you do a really good laugh.
I've watched this movie too many times. His immediate response is, how can this be the voice of God?
Yeah.
Um,
Because he's like chasing around ladies, touching their boobies, like, you
he's
know.
the complete opposite in sort of moral
Yeah.
principles as Salieri. He's a stuck-up guy. The only thing that he enjoys outside of making music is he's a sweet tooth. And then the entire film mostly is about Salieri trying to sort of sabotage his career,
Yeah.
Mozart's career, to quite extreme, to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is the narrative device of this film, because you said about that Forman is really good at narratively structuring these things, and that it's so different from other musical biopics. The narrative device of this movie is simply amazing.
Yeah.
The way it starts as a murder mystery told from, as you said, unreliable narrator saying like, oh, this and this and this happened. I am an incredibly mediocre guy who felt the presence of genius,
Mm-hmm.
and it constantly moves back into that room with him telling the story of what transpired.
So one thing that I think is really interesting is that Salieri kind of like makes himself suffer for art when he maybe doesn't need to. And I think you see this a lot in like very serious media, and people are like, I got to suffer for my. Do you think you need to suffer for art?
No.
I think if it comes naturally to you, the way that it comes to Mozart, you know, you kind of see that he's just vibing out and he just has this incredible talent. And, you know, I think that usually the people who are like, this is my art, this is my cross to bear, are like, first of all, unbearable people. I'm sorry. And are those the ones that actually make the best art?
No, unsure. No, not really. No, I don't know. It sounds hella pretentious. I think that's the thing that Salieri really proves, is that he's, maybe what you're saying is that if you're going at it from that sort of pretentious side, is that you're also really thinking that you're doing amazing shit while you are clearly just a mediocre artist, is of course an incredibly mind-blowing thing to realize, if you can even realize that. I think that's also the beauty in this movie, that Salieri is an artist. He's based on somebody that actually existed. The entire basis of this film is murky at best, because Mozart and Salieri in real life, they knew each other, or they probably weren't as close as what happened in this film. And the entire thing of him trying to sort of force Mozart to write a requiem is not what happened. Salieri didn't kill Mozart in any way. But the idea of accepting the fact that you are an artist, but maybe not an artist of godly proportions, whatever godly means, is beautiful. The fact that you can actually sort of come to terms with the fact that, yeah, I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also music as a hobby, the movie.
Maybe you don't need to be Beyonce.
Except maybe you will never be Beyonce, but it's fine if you, after work at home, record a pop song.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about not being great.
And that is totally true. I love the whole thing of like, he at some point towards the end, which is not really, but like towards the end, he goes like, yeah, I'm the patron saint of mediocrity. And that's kind of him accepting that is what he is. And that is something that I truly believe about creativity and creation. I will, for the 700th time on this podcast, bring up The Artist's Way, which is a book kind of method thing for kind of honing your creativity. That book really just goes, every day create something and let it be shit. You know, start writing, let it be the worst thing you ever wrote, and then whatever, but at least you wrote something, and it's always better to go from that point. So I do believe for most people who are artists, want to be artists, and aren't necessarily the gifted by God Mozart, there is still a way for you to create, and it's by doing and by practicing the art. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away from ambition.
Right.
You know, you can still be ambitious.
Exactly. And this is something, maybe it's a good moment to ask, like, because for me, I definitely recognize that Salieri thing of like, wait, but I work really hard. And like, why? Because I'm a person who is on social media. Like my job is creating things social media. My job is creating things on social media. I put a lot of effort into it. I try to say things of value. And then I scroll, you know, I'll get like maybe 300 likes on a video, and then I'll scroll and I'll see a video with 1.7 million likes, and it's Fruit Love Island where a banana gets an orange pregnant, and I'm like, well, what's the fucking point?
What are the words that what came out of your mouth? What do you mean?
Tom.
A fruit became pregnant?
Fruit Love Island.
Fruit Love Island?
Yeah. So there's this genre of AI that just does nonsense AI videos, and it'll be like little soap opera things that are like 30 seconds long, and it's like a banana getting an apple pregnant, and then they're crying and they have to have an abortion, and it gets like really bad. But sometimes,
We're so cooked.
We're so cooked.
Isn't that a bit different though to Salieri and Mozart?
No.
How are you going
Mozart
to
is
circle
an AI
back?
slop.
No, but yeah, I mean,
get your point.
I get, you know,
Yeah. And what she's trying to say is that Banana Island is Mozart in this.
No. Obviously, Fruit Love Island is different, and it is not about the talent or the creativity, but it is about like, you feel like you're putting in a lot of work to be good at something, and you're like, why, man, you know, and you see like, you know, a girl like lip syncing to a Zara Larsson song, and they get 1,000 times more views. So I think that maybe is the modern equivalent that kind of takes it in the other direction. It's like, does talent and knowledge not matter at all anymore? And is it just, you know, it's maybe we as a society have moved completely in the other direction.
In a way, I feel like there are less geniuses in society, in like culture and art, that carry the same aura.
So I think it's interesting what you say, like, are there fewer geniuses now? I really don't think there are fewer geniuses. It's just that society is no longer interested in geniuses. This is a point that I bring up to anyone who does or doesn't want to hear it. We don't get excellent music anymore on a scale that we used to. It's because we stopped letting people like Christopher Cross, Phil Collins, whatever, be famous. You know, you now have to be Sabrina Carpenter or Zara Larsson or Beyonce and be hot and smart and funny and write your own music and dance and be blonde and skinny and all of these things to be popular. And I think they deserve to be popular. I think they're incredible, but we don't allow for a Phil Collins to happen anymore.
People can't be bold anymore. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, we don't let bald people be famous anymore. But I totally understand what you're saying, Elliot. Is like, are there fewer geniuses? I really don't think so. I do think it is harder for a genius to prove to people that they are a genius because they get fewer. There's way more people gatekeeping that. However, there are also a ton of people who are on TikTok just, you know, showing their craft.
Yeah, and maybe the way that we experience culture even has changed due to the fact that we are so locked into a Banana Island.
Fruit Love Island, get it right.
Oh, come on. You know, that that it's taken away. Like if you mention Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter or whatever, it's there are corporations that function as big as marketing machines that maybe there is a new Mozart somewhere, you know? I don't know.
Do we give a shit as a society? You know, I do, but does society give a shit that there's, again, I'll say TikTok, but like you'll see like a 3-year-old boy playing a piano concerto. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody cares the way that they used to about those things because I don't know.
I think actually a good example is Fred again. Do you know who Fred again is?
Yes,
so
I do.
He's a music producer from the UK, and I wouldn't say he's a genius by any stretch of the imagination, but he studied under someone like Brian Eno.
Wow, I didn't know that about him.
And was more in the classical training of music, and then quickly moved across into more pop music and changed his whole sound because I imagine that is what makes more money or brings in larger audiences.
That's really interesting.
We need to go one step back because there has always been Aphex Twin, who was for a long time considered the Mozart of electronic music from the 80s up till when he started making too much music, which is funny because then everybody's like,
tone it down.
We don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a new EP. Well, no. 12 years between albums, please. Otherwise,
So are you
not
saying like
genius
we get used to a certain level of genius? And for example, in Aphex Twin, where at some point we go,
I think Fred again is a good example. If we're specifically honing in on the electronica here, is if you watch his Tiny Desk concert, that's just amazing. He's an incredibly talented, very He has a Prince level of multi-instrumentalism
Oh,
to him.
absolutely. Yeah. He's very talented. And he understands what the people want.
Yeah.
Maybe to bring it back to Salieri. So I haven't watched
Salami.
Salami, actually. It's salami. Get it right.
Salami.
An island.
I'm waiting to watch it on the big screen.
Salami Love Island. We're pitching it right now. Celebrating Cinema is now an AI Salami Love Island account. I hope.
2 million views on all the videos. Sorry, go ahead.
I can imagine the mediocrity thing can be hard to contend with as an artist, especially if you have someone like Mozart as your contemporary. But I also imagine, is there an element in the sense that not gaining the recognition or an audience also not wanting to receive your art? Because you can make it for yourself, but I guess you still want to feel
Heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that something that comes across in the film? Or is it more just he really wants to be making godlike music?
There is an arrogance to him that he thinks that due to his promise that he gave God, like his chastity, that he will be his sort of instrument. He's going to be the instrument of God. And then he quickly realizes that reading seeing the first editions of Mozart's work that are given to him by Constanza at some point, he realizes that is the voice of God. He is not the voice of God. But there is an arrogance and an ambition to him that he thinks that he is this instrument of God. So he thinks that his shit is awesome. But it's not.
And he constantly criticizes, and this also reminded me, because he sees one of the first like kind of operettas or something that he sees Mozart do, and he's like, well, there's so many notes and it's really shit, and like all these arpeggio upon arpeggio, and it's like he says something like it's fireworks for the fairground.
Yeah. There's also the specific thing of the Mozart is way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time. It's kind of like, you know, how the Beatles were the devil's music and we now don't understand Fruit Love Island.
Yeah.
He is like, well, this is garbage. My thing is classic and normal and it's good and it's decent.
Yeah.
And it's the way it's supposed to be. And there's this beautiful scene where he composes this march for the king. And he's like, well, this is what I did. It was really nice. And then Mozart comes and is like, oh yeah, this slaps. But what if you did?
Yeah.
And he just writes this tune that we all know based off of Salieri's kind of dusty, musty classic march that he does. And he just does this thing and it just energizes the room and you see, oh, okay. There it is.
Maybe that's even harder to deal with, the fact that someone makes something genius out of
your
work.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so painful.
Mozart literally says first he compliments Salieri like, oh yeah, I've heard it, and he says it's a funny little tune. It gave me some good ideas, and then boom, he just hits it out of the park, like adding notes and notes and notes and notes and notes.
And it plays so well on Salieri's face. He was like, nice.
But honestly, F. Murray Abraham, for this entire movie, there are so many moments where the only thing he does is go from, oh, this is nice, to utter disappointment because he realizes, I could never do this.
Speaking of F. Murray Abraham's beautiful acting in this movie, one thing that is ironic and gorgeous about the Amadeus journey is that Salieri wins the Oscar.
Yeah.
You know? Because it was whatever you want, but Salieri gets the Oscar.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful, hilarious little thing. So Tom Hulce and F. Murray Abraham were both nominated that year in the category of Best Actor, and Salieri takes it, and I think that is hysterical.
Yeah. And it proves that Oscars are given to mediocrity.
So we're doing this new segment called Hot Takes. And what we want from you is to send us a little 1 minute voice note, either through email at celebratingcinema@lab111.nl or on Instagram, DM, or wherever, where you have a hot take, a controversial opinion about cinema that we can discuss in this episode. We would love to hear from you. That's it for this week. Amadeus is screening at Lab 111 and nationwide. You can find the link to tickets in the show notes. We'll see you next time when we're going to be talking about Obsession. Stay connected with us at Celebrating Cinema and Lab by following at Lab 111 on Instagram and Letterboxd. Do you love what we do? Support us by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us climb the ranks of the podcast charts. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, and co-produced by myself, Laura Romans. Music comes from Hugo Emertsal, and the artwork is by Studio FFF.